Hello, welcome back. RC Truth Media is back again. Today is August 28th, 2018, and the end of the petrodollar hegemony may happen soon, says an article from Zero Hedge, and it is going to badly impact the indebted American public if it does. Why? Because the dollar is what we use every day for our finances, financing everything. Trump's America is waging economic warfare against most of the world and 2 billion people with a combined GDP of more than $15 trillion. Targeted nations include China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Pakistan, Turkey, Cuba, Sudan, Zimbabwe, Myanmar, the Democratic Republic of Congo, North Korea, and others. Bull markets eventually come to an end, and with a national debt of $21 trillion and growing at a year, the awakening could be ruder and sooner than most economists predict. The United States is currently waging economic warfare against 1/10 of the world's countries, with a cumulative population of nearly 2 billion people. The reserve currency status does not last forever, okay, as we can see from this chart here. Let's go to a different chart we can see here, and it shows it a little bit better. From 1921, the dollar took the status of the global reserve currency, and we are 97 years later. It's still here, but it's dying. We could see from the past, global reserve status usually only lasts around 100 years, give or take 10-15 years or so, with the longest reserve currency being Spain and the shortest one being the Netherlands and Portugal, tied. So, with that said, USA is about done, right? If we look at history. But let's see. From this article, it is saying that we are going to even be going into this new system quicker because of what's happening with Trump's America. These countries that Trump has been fighting with include countries like Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, I've already said them, and others on which Washington has imposed sanctions over the years. But also countries like China, Pakistan, and Turkey, which are not under full sanctions but rather targets of other punitive economic measures. In addition, thousands of individuals from scores of countries are included in the Treasury Department's list of specially designated nationals who are effectively blocked from the U.S. dominated global financial system. Many of those designated are either part of or are closely linked to their country's leadership. From a U.S. perspective, each one of the economic entities is targeted for a good reason, be it human rights violations, terrorism, crime, nuclear trade, corruption, or in the case of China, unfair trade practices and intellectual property theft. Like, intellectual property theft is kind of like how they took Hollywood by buying out much of the media, and they do this a lot because of their money and their influence. But in recent months, it seems that America's unwavering commitment to fight all of the world's scourges has brought all those governments and the wealthy individuals who support them to a critical mass, joining forces to create a parallel financial system which would be out of reach of America's long arm, should they succeed. The impact on America's global posture would be transformational. America's global supremacy has been made possible not only thanks to its military power and its alliance system, but also due to its control over the plumbing of global finance, and particularly the broad acceptance of the dollar as the world's reserve currency. The unique status of the U.S. currency has anchored the global financial system since World War II. Any transaction done in U.S. dollars or using a U.S. bank automatically brings the trading parties under American legal jurisdiction. When the U.S. decides to impose unilateral sanctions, as in the case of Iran, it essentially tells the world's governments, corporations, and individuals they must choose between halting business with the sanctioned country or be shut off from the world's _1 economy. This is a powerful stick. Not many companies or banks can afford to give up on the U.S. market or be denied access to the U.S. financial institutions. Revisionist countries that wish to challenge the U.S.-led system see this as an affront to their economic sovereignty, which is why both Russia and China have developed their own version of the SWIFT system, the global network that allows cross-border financial transactions among thousands of banks. This is really, really important right here because the SWIFT system is the system that has been developed after World War II. And a lot of countries are talking about getting away from this. Germany, France, China has created the Petro One to get around sanctions, and many other countries that you see here are having to deal with this as well. And so let's go to another article we see here. It says, is the world ganging up against the dollar? I believe so. Look at what Trump has done, putting on all these sanctions, and what do you think they're going to do? But they're going to try to get around the sanctions somehow, right? So they're trying to create a new system. And with the dollar not worth anything anymore, it's pretty relative that they do. It's about time that this happens. I think Trump wants a new system as well. The U.S. has been highly successful at pursuing financial warfare, including sanctions, but for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. As the U.S. wields the dollar weapon more frequently, the rest of the world works harder to shun the dollar completely. I've been warning for years about efforts of nations like Russia and China to escape what they call dollar hegemony and create a new financial system that does not depend on the dollar and helps them get out from under dollar-based economic sanctions. These efforts are only increasing. In the past 4 months, Russia has reduced its ownership of U.S. Treasury securities by 84% and has acquired enough gold to surpass China on the list of major holders of gold as official reserves. Russia has almost 2,000 tons of gold, having more than tripled its gold reserves in the past 10 years. This combination of fewer treasuries and more gold puts Russia on a path to full insulation from U.S. financial sanctions. Russia can settle its balance of payments obligations with gold shipments or gold sales and avoid U.S. asset freezes by not holding assets the U.S. can reach. Of course, Russia is not the only country engaged in financial warfare with the United States. China and Iran are leading examples, but we can also add Turkey to the list after its latest currency crisis. Russia is providing these and other nations as a model to achieve similar distance from the U.S. efforts to use the dollar to enforce its foreign policy priorities. Take China and Iran. China is the second largest economy in the world and the fastest growing major emerging market. China has a voracious appetite for energy, but has little oil of its own. Iran is a major oil producer, and China is Iran's biggest customer. But oil is priced in dollars, and dollar flows through the U.S. banking system. Trump's Iran sanctions make it impossible for China to pay Iran in dollars. If U.S. sanctions prohibit dollar payments for Iranian oil, then Iran and China may have no choice but to transact in yuan. Meanwhile, Europe has remained a faithful partner to the U.S. and has gone along with sanctions against Iran, for example. That's because European companies and countries that violate U.S. sanctions can be punished with denied access to U.S. dollar payment channels. But now Europe is also showing signs it wants to escape dollar hegemony. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas recently called for a new EU-based payment system independent of the U.S. and the SWIFT that would not involve dollar payments. SWIFT and the nerve center of the global financial network. All major banks transfers are all major currencies using the SWIFT system. Cutting the nation off from SWIFT is like taking away its oxygen. The U.S. had previously banned Iran from the dollar payment system, but Iran turned to SWIFT to transfer euros and yen in order to maintain its receipt of hard currency for oil exports. In 2013, the U.S. successfully kicked Iran out of SWIFT. This was a crushing blow to Iran because it could not receive payment in hard currencies for its oil. This pushed Iran to the bargaining table, which resulted in the Iran nuclear deal with the U.S. and its allies in 2015. Now Trump has negated that U.S.-Iran deal and is putting pressure on its allies to once again refuse to do business with Iran. And Congress is again pushing it to exclude Iran from SWIFT as part of sanctions program. The difficulty this time is that our European allies are not on board and are seeking ways to keep the nuclear deal alive and working around U.S. sanctions. Europe's solution is to therefore create new non-dollar payment channels. In the short run, the U.S. is likely to enforce its sanctions rigorously. European businesses will probably go along with the U.S. because they don't want to lose business in the U.S. itself or to be banned from the U.S. dollar payment system. But in the longer run, this is just one more development pushing the world at large away from dollars and toward alternatives of all kinds. including new payment systems and cryptocurrencies. It's also one more sign that the dollar dominance in global finance may end sooner than most expect. We are getting dangerously close to that point right now. That's right. I'll go ahead and leave the link to this article if you'd like to see the rest. Thank you very much for joining. Please hit that subscribe button and hit that like button as well, and you have a great day.